Hey Dental Lab community, Joe Manti, Western Regional Sales Manager for Ivoclar here. We all know zirconia is a hot topic. There's a lot of information out there, but also plenty of myths that could lead to confusion and misconceptions. That's why I teamed up with Jeff Smith, Ivoclar's Director of Technical and Digital Services, to tackle the questions we hear all the time. From strength and translucency to processing techniques, we've got the answers for you. So please join us for an honest conversation based on real-world experiences with zirconia. Don't miss out. Watch now and get the clarity you deserve. Simply log on to ivoclar.com or connect using the QR code available on the Voices from the Bench webpage to listen to this webinar.
Welcome to Voices from the Bench, a dental laboratory podcast. Send us an email at info@voicesfromthebench.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Greetings and welcome to episode 387 of Voices from the Bench. My name is Elvis.
My name's Barbara. Hello.
What's happening, Barb? How are you down there in the great state of Florida?
It's raining.
Yeah.
It's in the 80s. We always talk about the weather. I think that we're the weather people on top.
It's been
of
a
the
while.
podcast.
It's actually been a while, so let's get an update.
Yeah. It's been in like 98, and this week it's raining and in the 80s. So I'm a runner, and I'm trying to look for windows when I can run today because it's Saturday. But all good. How are you?
Yeah. Good. Really good. We're actually getting a little break. We call it false fall, where you wake up and it's like in the 60s, and then later by the end of the day it's in the high 80s. But it's like fall for a while, so we take it when we can.
I like it. But does it go back to being super hot next week?
Oh, of course. It's just a fake fall. Yeah.
Okay.
It's to give us a false sense of we live somewhere nice.
Well, it is September almost. My God.
I know, but that's not how it rolls around here. But speaking of running,
yeah.
You inspired me last week when you bought your ticket to go to the Race for the Future. I waited a whole week, and about an hour ago, I bought my ticket.
Right.
To go to the Race for the Future. So in Fort Worth, Texas, September 14th, which is kind of cool. I'm hearing a lot of people are coming to join us this year that don't usually do it because they have the 5K option.
I saw Mandy on Facebook saying she was coming.
Yep, and she roped in about 2 or 3 other people in the Texas area to come join. So the more the merrier. So if you can, hey, come out and join us. And if you can't, donate. It all goes to the Foundation for Dental Laboratory Technology. Yep. And of course, head over to this episode's show notes for all the juicy details.
I actually bit the bullet and became a sponsor. I was like, I don't really want to beg people for money, so I'm just going to donate. So I donated. So I get my name on the shirt. Yay.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And we get our name on the shirt, I think, too, right?
We did last year. This year, we didn't sell as many T-shirts and stuff. So.
Dang it, guys.
Yeah.
Next
I
year.
didn't really put a lot of effort into it, so it's kind of my bad.
It's tough.
I get a lot of people saying, where are the shirts? And I'm like, it's hard to be creative all the time.
Yep.
But this week, we bring back to the podcast, almost exactly 2 years later, prosthodontist Dr. Brandon Kofford. Now, unfortunately, Barb, you were not there during this interview.
Okay, it must be
implants. What you're doing. Yep, but since it's all about implants, full arch, same-day surgery, conversions, you weren't around to kind of remind me that I was running a little long and it was time to wrap it up.
Well, I do know that you like to geek out on that, so I'm sure it was hour and half?
Not quite, but we did nerd out over it for quite a while. You see, years ago, Dr. Kofford invented the Smart Denture Conversion system just to make his life a little easier. Well, here we are 2 years later. It's growing in popularity, and that's allowed him and his team to rebrand as Smart On X and dive deeper into the parts and the workflow for a better day of surgery conversions.
Sweet.
Yeah, we started off talking about his clever Omibut and its ability to fit almost any situation better than a standard MUA. Multi-unit abutment for those not in the know.
For me, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, it was really for you, yeah. Then we get into the exciting and much needed updates to the Smart Denture Conversion parts with the new 2.0 line. And then we wrap up the conversation when I ask him why he's selling prefabricated dentures when that goes against basically anything a prosthodontist would stand for.
Uh-oh. Did you push his buttons?
A little bit.
All right.
So join us as we chat with Dr. Brandon Kofford. Voices from the bench. The interview. We're extremely excited to bring back a past guest, Dr. Brandon Kofford. Welcome back, sir.
Oh, thanks, Elvis. It's good to be here with you again.
Absolutely. I was just looking it up. It has been since August of 23 when you came on.
Oh, wow.
It seems like ages ago.
Well, I was going to say it feels like just because we run into each other periodically, so it doesn't feel like it's been that long.
That's true. I just saw you in Chicago not too long ago at a Cal Lab and and CNC and everything. I mean, you're getting around. What's changed? Anything lately?
Well, yeah, so we just barely, I'm glad you asked that question. So we just barely finished a project that I have been begging my team to get done for like 3 years.
Well, team, it's about effing time. So let's back up. So you're the guy behind Smart Denture Conversions.
Right.
I've spoken highly of this, even before we had you on the podcast, long after. Love the system, but you're not really called Smart Denture Conversions anymore. It's different.
Yeah.
It's better. It's... technicians and change,
Right.
We're all like, what's going on? So tell me what you've been doing with this process since we had you on almost 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's a very good question. We've been very, very busy. And, we can't really disclose too much before it's ready to launch, right? So 2 years ago, all I could talk to you about was Smart Denture Conversions. But now 2 years later, we finally have gotten through the FDA process for our new abutment, the Omibut.
You hinted on that at the podcast. I remember it was like a teaser.
Yeah. So, that was a years-long process just to get all the data collected to be able to apply through the FDA for a 510K. And knowing that was coming down the pike, we felt like it was appropriate to rebrand ourselves rather than just known as Smart Denture Conversions as a company, Smart Denture Conversions. We rebranded to Smart on X. That's kind of a play on all on X.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. It's funny to me how many people, when I say all on X, they still look at me weird. And they're like, you mean all on 4? And I'm like, well, sometimes it's 5,
yeah,
sometimes
exactly.
it's other systems, sometimes it's 6. All on X kind of covers it all.
Yeah.
I love it. Smart on X, yeah.
Yeah, so Smart on X, just playing on the all on X theme. And, Smart Denture Conversions is a system that makes the provisionalization at the time of surgery so much easier than the conventional way of doing a denture conversion. So when I first came up with the product, I had no vision for expanding into additional products. So it just made sense to name the company the name of the product that I had just invented, right?
Sure. I mean, you initially made this just for yourself,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, exactly. It was just a desperate prosthodontist trying to make life easier in my own practice. And so, not having much business or marketing acumen, it made sense. Well, name the company after the product. So that's what
it's
we
a
did.
Great name. There's no fault in that initial name. I mean, it works perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it achieved its purpose, right? So you're referring to the business, you're referring to the product, and it just helps everybody understand what the product and what the business is. It's been interesting to me how many people consider Smart Denture Conversions as diametrically opposed to a digital workflow. And that's just always just been very interesting to me. So when I say Smart Denture Conversions, people automatically, those who do a digital workflow, they like disregard the product because they're like, oh, well, I'm digital. It's like, well.
Oh, yeah.
So we ran into that problem as well, and not wanting our newer products that aren't just focused on the actual conversion of a denture. We didn't want those to be conflated with the analog workflow, it just made sense for us to rebrand as Smart on X.
Yeah.
And it paved the way for us to be able to bring additional products that aren't just making the analog conversion process easier, but focusing on making all on X easier and just more predictable.
Well, that Omibut, let's start with that, because that was the next thing that came out, right? I mean, you came in big.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was a really huge undertaking for such a small business. I don't know how many we have on staff right now. I think it's like 10 people, right? So we're a small business.
How many did you have when we talked 2 years ago? 3?
There would have been like 5.
Wow.
We're a small business, and which is possible to do because we're also small parts, right? So small parts, small business. But getting through the FDA process of claiming substantial equivalence to products that are already on the market, that is a regulatory nightmare for a small business.
It's crazy.
And it's also a very expensive process. So it took us a long time. I mean, just logistically trying to figure out what that process is, because good luck finding it online, how to conceive an idea, and then what are the regulatory processes to get it to the market. It is.
Did you hire somebody that knew the process?
We had to hire
help?
We had to hire a consultant to help us through that. And, that's a very expensive process, or a very expensive endeavor. But he was very good. In fact, his name's Joe Azery. He was our consultant to help us through the FDA process. And that was very, very helpful. It was a worthwhile expense.
Did he specialize in dental, or
no,
just FDA in general?
Just FDA in general. He has done some dental work, which made it a little bit easier. But when you know the process, then you can apply it across specialties, medical or dental.
Yeah.
But it's a very challenging thing to do if you're just a clinician like myself trying to figure things out.
I mean, we've had multiple people on this podcast talk about the headaches and the costs that go into any of that.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I guess I can see why it's necessary, but at the same time, does it need to be so hard?
Well, what I wish, in fact, I think it would be a very interesting main podium speech at any of the dental conventions, would be what a small business should do with their ideas. Like, what if you have a really good idea of how to make improvements within our industry, this is how you do it. And not just leaving it up to the big corporations to try to solve our problems, because they're not going to do it in the pursuit of our best interests. They're just going to be doing it in the pursuit of their best interests.
Oh, yeah. It's like milling abutments now. Nobody wants to go through the headache of getting that FDA.
Right.
So they partner with a company and buy all their stuff.
Right.
To fall under that umbrella.
Yeah, I think it would be very good to educate all of us, because every single one of us, technicians and clinicians, we're all struggling with the same things, and we all have ideas about how to make things better, but those ideas oftentimes just kind of get stuck in limbo because you don't know what to do with an idea. And I was just a guy lucky enough to have an idea, and I met the right people along the way who were able to make it happen.
Yeah, and your previous episode, we hear about that story, and the neighbor, I think, and the guy that just happened to be a machinist, and I mean, it all kind of worked out.
Yeah,
but the Omibut, it's a multi-unit with changeable angles.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess that's the best way to say it, because most systems you're stuck with the 0, the 17, the 30. Right. And you're stuck with, however many points of rotation that you have, depending on the system. It's very limited.
Yeah.
I imagine one day you said, there's got to be a better way.
Well, the way the Omibut came about is a funny story. My oral surgeon had built out a big, heart surgery level surgical center, ambulatory surgical center.
Yeah.
Where we would bring patients to do ambulatory surgeries, but full arch surgery under general anesthesia. And it was really awesome. Because of his connections, the implant reps were always coming to him, asking him to try their systems. And so one of our implant reps, I won't name the company, but one of our implant reps came and asked us to use their new system. To which we said, all right, we'll give it a try, but we're not going to buy these parts just to try them out. If you want us to try it, you provide all the parts. So he said, oh, absolutely.
Yeah, gimme. Yeah.
So he brought all the implants. He brought all the, and I'm putting air quotes. You can't see it, but I'm putting all this in
Okay.
quotes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he brought all the implants, all the multi-unit abutments, and I brought my Smart Denture Conversion system. So this is a pretty challenging case with vertical maxillary excess and very thin maxillary ridge that we were working with. So rather than doing all on 6, I asked my surgeon to place 8 implants, which he was more than willing to accommodate. Mm-hmm. He lost count. He gave me 9.
Oh, geez.
And in addition, the alveolar ridge being thin, it was also very flared. And you could only put these implants, but in one angulation, right?
Yeah, never an ideal one.
Yeah, my workflow was my surgeon would place the implants, and then I would jump behind the patient and start calling out which abutments I needed. I start calling out I need a 30 degree, 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 and a straight, right? So they were all 30 degree angles.
Yeah.
And I look up at my sales rep, and he's white as a ghost, and I'm like, what's up? And he says, I have 2 17s and the rest are straights.
What?
Yeah. And I'm like, oh. Well, luckily, Smart Denture Conversions, I knew I'd be able to accommodate all those divergent angles. It wasn't that big of a deal. I knew I'd have screw channels coming out the facial surfaces of the prosthesis, but I also knew that they would be small screw channels.
Yeah. Easy to plug.
So not that big of a deal, not ideal for the final restoration. So I knew that I'd have to, after integration, I'd have to swap out the abutments. But my assistant with me was a dentist trained in Cuba. So he didn't have a U.S. license. So he was assisting me at the time.
Yeah.
And he looked at this problem. And while I'm in the other operatory trying to convert this prosthesis, he's trying to describe to me what is the Omibut. He says, wouldn't it be cool if you only needed one abutment and you could change it into any direction? And I just wasn't in the mood to talk about anything. I was so frustrated with the situation.
I'm blowing holes out the facial here, dude.
Yeah, exactly. Like, shut up and let me work. So, anyway, that was the instance that led to the creation of the Omibut. But I had kind of dismissed it as, that's impossible, shut up. So a couple months later, my engineer who helped me with Smart Denture Conversions was in the office with his mom. Mm-hmm. And she just needed a denture reline. No big deal, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm working in an adjacent operatory, placing retraction cord or something like that. And my Cuban assistant says, hey, can I go talk to Charles about my idea? And I said, sure, whatever. So he's in operatory 2 talking to Charles about this swiveling abutment and the benefits that it would provide in full arch fix, blah, blah, blah. And I, all of a sudden, now I'm not under the stress and the frustration of the situation I was during the surgery. And so I'm listening to this thinking, oh my gosh, that is genius. That would be amazing. So I get up out of the chair and I go over to operatory 2 and I just peek my head and I said, Charles, that's a really good idea.
Oh, there you go.
So that happened way back in like 2021.
Yeah, but it's no small feat here. How did the practical come together? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so it all starts with ideas, and then you have to provide
figure out how it works.
Yeah, you have to provide clinical parameters that idea needs to adhere to, right? And so the big thing for the Omibut being a non-indexed abutment, the big thing for that, the big clinical parameter was you had to be able to re-tighten the locking mechanism through the prosthesis. So that's like the big clinical parameter. If anything ever comes loose, so you remove that prosthesis and that abutment moves from its position, you have to be able to tighten it through the prosthesis. And so I gave my engineer all those parameters and he started working on designs, and the designs actually happen really quickly. And then you go into manufacturing and you look at manufacturability, and we went through several iterations to make it more manufacturable and also meet up to the clinical parameters. And so finally we have an actual working prototype. Now, how do you get it through the FDA?
Well, even before then, I'm just curious. So you screw in and there's basically like a ball top. And then on top of that is I don't know, easiest way to maybe like the tie base shaped top that rotates around that ball?
Close. Yeah. So the way I like to describe the Omibut is it's a ball abutment. Like it is a ball abutment.
Okay.
With
like an OD Secure or something?
Well, I don't know OD Secure, but it's a ball abutment. It looks like a ball abutment. And then we permanently attach a swivel base that looks like a multi-unit abutment. So rather than a ball abutment that has, resilient attachments that can click on and off, how they're using removable appliances.
Yeah.
The Omibut is a ball abutment that has a multi-unit abutment retained to it permanently that can swivel around that ball.
But not come off. I'm following.
Not come off. And then there's an orientation screw that tightens. It's like a set screw. It sets that swiveling component to the ball and just uses friction forces to keep it in position for clinical convenience. But then the prosthesis itself is a rigid splint and keeps all the abutments together. So our challenge with the FDA was, how do you test this as a multi-unit abutment? Because all the multi-unit abutments, or any abutment for any implant system, has to go through a mechanical test called the 14801 test, which is embedding an implant into a bone simulated material with 3 millimeters of bone loss around the implant.
Interesting. Yeah.
At 30 degrees, or actually it's plus 10 degrees from the amount of angle correction. So a 30-degree multi-unit abutment would have to be tested at 40 degrees.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that you're not perfectly in line with the piston. And then you do a dynamic fatigue testing, and you have to test it through 5 million cycles. And so you're creating a fatigue curve, and you're trying to discover the fatigue properties of the abutment, right? So you need to see 4 samples fail before 5 million cycles and 4 samples survive 5 million cycles. And so what is the amount of force required to break the sample prior to 5 million cycles? And what is the maximum force that it can survive beyond 5 million cycles? And that 5 million cycles is just meant to simulate a period of time in use in the mouth. Right.
Like it simulates chewing?
Well, the dynamic testing is 12 hertz, which is 12 cycles per second, where you're loading and unloading the abutment, right? So you're essentially tapping on the abutment and applying a certain amount of force.
Wow.
And then you're trying to see what is the amount of force required to break it? What is the amount of force that it can withstand breaking up to 5 million cycles?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we had the problem of, okay, we want to claim substantial equivalence to a standard multi-unit abutment.
Yeah, you can't be subpar.
Right. And so how do you test our abutment knowing that, well, yeah, if you apply let's say 200 newtons of force to this swiveling component, and you do it as a single unit, of course it's going to move. So is that the failure, or is what's failure here? So we were really stuck in limbo, not knowing how we could test it and claim substantial equivalence, until we finally it dawned on us, no, all we need to do is test it like a ball abutment. So take the swiveling component off and test the strength of the ball abutment, and then do a separate test, which is a modification of the 14801 test in its indicated use, which is a minimum of 4 implants.
Oh, I get you.
So that we could then test the ability of that swiveling component in its intended use,
which is 4 of them support.
Exactly. And does it move under functional conditions? And so, it just took us a long time to figure out how to provide the data to the FDA to be able to claim substantial equivalence to a standard multi-unit abutment, which we finally did.
Yeah, I was going to say, how do you explain that to someone that doesn't understand dentistry?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's gotta be hard.
Right. So that was it was a really, really big task. And that's why it took us since 2021 to get the abutment available to the public. And so in preparation for that, there was the name change to Smart on X.
Mm-hmm.
Simultaneously, we're a small team trying to manage many very big projects. So the Omibut was a all hands on deck, very large project for all of us in this small company.
Yeah.
And we finally got it through, and man, we were super excited. And meanwhile, simultaneously, we're working on another 3-year-long project of what we call Smart Denture Conversions 2.0.
Yeah. But first I want to find out, how did the Omibut, it hit the market. What is the reception? Are people loving it? Are they reluctant because of what it is? Is it taking it hard to sell them on a few cases?
Yeah, absolutely. All of the above, right? So there's a lot of interest in it. Like, oh my gosh, that looks amazing. I can see why that would be awesome. But
I was gonna say,
but you don't want to be the first clinician to try something and then have it go completely haywire and you're on the hook.
Sure.
I'm totally sympathetic to my colleagues and them being worried about testing or trying something new like this. However, to reassure them, I say, no, it is substantially equivalent to a multi-unit abutment. The question they always ask me is, aren't you worried about it breaking? And then I always ask them, are you worried about your multi-unit abutment breaking?
And of course they say no.
They say no, and I ask, have you ever seen a multi-unit abutment break?
I haven't.
I have.
Oh, you have?
Absolutely.
Oh.
Yeah.
I always see everything else break.
So, and that's a very good point, Elvis. Everything breaks.
Yeah.
In fact, implants break.
Oh, yeah. OEM parts break, no matter what the sales reps tell you. OEM part breaks.
Absolutely. No, I have seen all kinds of fractures, right? Okay, so one of my favorite images that I've ever been able to capture was a patient came in, they had a guided surgery done at the VA, and 3 implants on the right side failed during the osseointegration period, which left him with his left side intact. And the patient probably didn't want to go into a removable appliance. And so they preserved from tooth number 8 to tooth number 14 as a fixed prosthesis. And then they put him into a partial denture to replace 3 through 7.
Interesting. Okay.
Very interesting, because now you're using these implants in such a way that they were not designed or engineered to be used. You have a huge
pulling on them.
You have a huge cantilever on them. Yeah, that removable prosthesis that's constantly pumping against that conversion prosthesis. And so the patient shows up in our practice and he had 3 types of fractures in one prosthesis. It was so cool. Not cool for him.
Not cool.
Not cool for him. I'm sympathetic to him. But for me, getting this picture was amazing, because I always drive home this point. Everything breaks. And so in this one picture, you see the prosthetic screw broke. So on the implant,
which is obvious. Yep.
Yeah. Site number 14, that prosthetic screw broke. So that was probably the first one to break.
Yeah.
And then the middle implant, so let's call it site number 12.
Yeah.
That multi-unit abutment, it was a straight multi-unit abutment. The multi-unit abutment threads broke deep in the implant.
Oh, it just sheared the threads off?
Yep, just sheared the threads off. So right below the taper of that straight multi-unit abutment, the threads sheared off.
Wow.
And then, must have been the second one to fail, because the last one, in site number 9, the implant broke mid-fixture.
Ugh.
And so I have all of this in one picture just to prove the point that everything breaks.
Yeah.
So if you're afraid of something breaking, get out of dentistry. Run for the hills.
Yeah. How was the restoration? Was it still in one piece?
Well, no, because they had sectioned off number 7 through 3, right?
Yeah.
But other than that, yes, the fragment that they had preserved, that was still intact.
Props to that lab.
Props to that lab. However, I'll say, of all the things that I want to break, the prosthetic screw is an easy enough problem to retrieve.
Yeah, that's what you want to break.
A broken prosthesis is easy enough for me to manage.
Yeah.
But when things break deep down in the implants, like screws under tension, break deep down in the implant, sometimes they're retrievable, but sometimes they're not. When an implant fixture breaks, there's no fixing that. It's a new surgery.
Yeah.
So we kind of have to think more along the lines of, okay, knowing that everything breaks, how do we engineer things to be easy fixes? So when people ask me, aren't you worried about your abutment breaking? I say, actually, I'm not, because the forces it takes to break the abutment are above clinical levels. However, I'm not so naive to think that it will never break, because I see things break all the time, and they're not my things. Like, you can't say, oh, well, Brandon, maybe you need to do some continuing education because it sounds like you have a problem. No, these are other patients coming from other practices into my practice for me to have to fix.
Yeah, you're not starting these cases.
Exactly. So I know I'm not the only one who sees these types of fractures, because they're coming from other practices into my practice. So anyway, I'm not so naive to think that things won't break. So you just want to make sure that when things break, they break predictably and they break with easy protocols to remove. And that's one of the cool things about this Omibut. All of our testing, it shows a predictable break pattern, which is at the neck of the ball.
Oh, the ball breaks off.
Yeah, the ball breaks off. And so what you're left with is essentially a cover screw in the implant, which means you don't have a bunch of junk getting into the implant and causing a possible cause of infection. You can retrieve that cover screw out of the implant very easily with very available retrieval tools. When you test a multi-unit abutment, guess what breaks?
The thread.
Well, that's a straight multi-unit abutment.
Right. Oh.
But when you test a 30 degree or a 17 degree, guess what breaks?
The implant?
Absolutely.
I don't know.
Every time.
Is it really?
Every time.
Well, you're putting 30 degrees forces, basically prying on the side of an implant.
Right, but now keep in mind that this test setup is not clinically relevant for All on X.
Because you're only doing one.
You're only doing one, and you're using a multi-unit abutment. It's not used as a single abutment. And so I get that the setup is not clinically relevant. However, the data is pretty interesting that when you test it under those conditions, it's the implant that fails. So,
which you don't want.
Which
Nobody wants that.
Which you don't want, right? So
yeah, interesting.
And anyway, so under the conditions of the implant or the indicated use for the Omibut, the abutment survives well beyond what would be clinically relevant forces. So yeah, am I worried about the abutment breaking? No, I'm not. I have hundreds of these Omibuts in use. I am not worried about the abutment breaking. But I'm not so naive to think that it won't ever break, because everything can break. So what's reassuring me is that if something breaks, there's a very easy way to retrieve that abutment out of the implant. Way easier than a screw deep down in the implant or an implant fracturing off completely.
And when it does break, you don't have to have a bunch of parts in stock. One fits all.
Absolutely.
If you don't have a 17 or a 30 or whatever, you don't need that. So that's a huge benefit.
It's a huge benefit. Now, people might say, yeah, but how are you going to get it to fit the prosthesis because it's a non-index part? And again, that goes back to the first clinical parameter that is an absolute requirement for the abutment is you have to be able to re-engage the locking mechanism through the prosthesis. So let's just say an abutment breaks, which is unlikely, but that's what people are worried about. So let's just say that happens.
Yep.
Easy to retrieve the portion in the implant because it breaks above the platform.
Yep.
And then
I just slot it and take a flathead screwdriver to it.
Yeah, it's actually easier than slotting it. You just drill a hole into it.
Yeah.
And then you use an easy extract from the implant. Salvin sells these really great kits called the Implant Rescue Kit. And so you can just drill a hole in it with your 245 carbide burr and then reverse it out very easily. So it's like a super easy fix. And then you don't have to think about, the orientation of the abutment that has to go into it, or is it a 17? Is it a 30? Is it a straight? Blah, blah, blah. You just torque your Omibut in, you loosen the locking mechanism, you put your prosthesis on over it, and then through the prosthesis, you engage the locking mechanism, torque that to 25 Newton centimeters, and then deliver the prosthesis. It's a very easy thing to do.
Interesting. The head locks onto the ball at 25.
Yes.
You don't hear that number too often.
Right. So what I wanted to do, another clinical parameter, is I wanted to stack the torque forces so that we torque the abutment to the implant at 35 Newton centimeters. The locking mechanism is at 25 Newton centimeters. And then the prosthetic screw is at 15 Newton centimeters.
Oh, I like it. Yeah.
And so that's just easy to remember because it's all in units of 10 and it's 35, 25 to 15.
I like it. I haven't seen them out in the world yet.
I'll have to send you a little model with it.
Yeah, please.
So that you can play with it.
Yeah, I'd love to see it in use because sometimes just choosing those angles, you want something in between sometimes.
Oh.
Or a little bit over, a little bit more lingual would have been nice,
Totally. But so I could go on and on and on about the importance of multi-unit abutment selection to establishing the ideal intaglio contours for your full arch fixed prosthesis.
Yeah.
Like we could spend a full 2 hours just on the importance of multi-unit abutment selection and full arch fixed. And it's unfortunate I see way too many fixed prostheses coming through my practice. I didn't do them. They come to me after having things done where the contours are not hygienic. And these poor patients who have spent, their life savings, $30,000 plus, and they've ended up with a prosthesis that just cannot be maintained. It all stems back to improper planning a lot of times, but also just improper multi-unit abutment selection. The reigning thought process for many, many years, and it stems from the conventional conversion and also from the 14801 test, actually. But the reigning thought has always been to parallel your multi-unit abutments.
Oh, yeah.
And that's because in the denture conversion process, the conventional conversion process, you have to obliterate your denture the more those implant or multi-unit abutments diverge.
Oh, because, what does he call them? Big holes.
Yeah, big holes. And it's because of the projection error of the divergence. You put a big, tall temp cylinder on those multi-unit abutments that are diverging, and by the time you get through the occlusal surface of the denture, you've got a huge hole there because of the divergence. And so to avoid doing that, you want to parallel your multi-unit abutments so that you can be more conservative to the denture that you're converting. However, that has adverse effects on the intaglio contours of your restorations. Ideally, and I teach people that in a single unit restoration, where would you want to see your screw channel? Let's say it's tooth number 8 and you're doing a screw retained restoration. Where do you want to see your screw channel? It's right in the cingulum of that anterior tooth. Okay, well, what about a posterior tooth? Where do you want to see your screw channel? Dead center in the occlusal table, right?
Dead middle, yeah.
Okay, so then the question is, well, why? And then they might say stuff like, well, to centralize or to optimize your occlusal forces along the long axis of the implant. To which I say, that's not what's happening in an anterior tooth.
Oh.
So that can't be the answer for why we do it that way. Sure, that works for a single unit in the posterior, but what about in the anterior? Why do we do that? Why don't we put a screw channel 10 millimeters lingual to the free gingival margin of an anterior single unit restoration? Well, because if you did that, you then have to create a non-hygienic contour to get the aesthetic surface of the tooth proper. You have to warp the shape of the intaglio of that restoration from that position to where the tooth needs to be. So with full arch fixed, really what we ought to be doing with our multi-unit abutments is directing the screw channels into the cingulum of the anteriors and the occlusal table of the posteriors so that we achieve optimal contours, sleeker designs, rather than having these, concave contours or
not worry about paralleling them.
Exactly. And so what the Omibut allows us to do, like you rightly identified, we're not limited to a straight, a 17 or a 30 and having to be dependent on the timing of the implant. No, it makes surgery so much easier. You just get the implant in and get it to the point where it's stable. Don't get greedy and try to turn it a little bit more for this reason or that reason. Just get it stable where you want it. And now don't think about straight 17 or 30. Don't think about heights or anything like that. Just screw in one abutment, and then your singular objective in orienting that abutment, once it's delivered to the implant, your singular objective is to direct the screw channel into the cingulum of the anteriors and the occlusal table of the posteriors. And in doing that, your intaglio contours will be optimized. It's awesome.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So the freedom that I get from the Omibut is so amazing. I absolutely love it.
I want to make sure we touch upon Smart Denture Conversion 2.0.
Yeah.
This is recent, right? This just recently kind
of just barely
launched.
Just barely launched.
Yeah. So I'm super familiar with, I guess is now considered 1.0 or legacy. I don't know what you're going to call it, but I mean, just seeing what's new is pretty exciting.
Yeah. Like I said, it's been a project we've been working on for over 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are a couple things that people always complain to me about with my system, and it's so funny to me. Like, remember how you had to do conventional conversions?
Yeah.
So yes, I've made things so much easier for you, and now these little things.
We want it easier.
You want it easier? This is incredible to me. So anybody who's ever heard me teach Smart Denture Conversions, they know that I harp on the importance of pre-coating the tie base and covering the tie base and the separable fastener with your pickup material. I always promote PMMA acrylic as my preferred pickup material. So I pre-coat with PMMA to lock my separable fastener into my tie base so that when I go to do my pickup, I don't have to expect a viscous material to find its way into the nooks and crannies of the undercuts of a tie base.
Yep.
But just has to make contact with that pre-coated tie base. And then it bonds and pulls out. It's very, very predictable. Even if you don't get 100% coverage of that tie base in the pickup, it's nice and secure. You don't have any wobbly tie bases or temp cylinders.
I love it because I can't tell you how many times I've been out in my personal garage pre-coating tie bases because my wife won't let me do it in the house for surgeries in the morning.
Right.
I love this.
So we've been...
It's cold out there in the winter.
Yeah. So we've been working on getting these tie bases pre-coated for 3 years. Now we've gone through several iterations, several ideas, right?
Yeah.
So as a clinician, I had my ideas of doing it. And then my engineers were like, well, that's a pretty wonky way of doing it. So here, try it this way. And so we came up with this awesome solution, which I absolutely love. It's a shell of polycarbonate. It's a clear polycarbonate.
Okay.
And it is secured to a tie base. The tie base has a 1.8 millimeter polished collar. And then the adherent surface of the tie base is, I want to say, like 3 millimeters tall.
Okay.
And so the shell is about 1 millimeter thick. And so the tie base height, all in all, is about 5.5 millimeters tall with the pre-coat in place. That was one of my clinical parameters that I gave my engineers, saying, okay, I want it pre-coated, but I also don't want to add height to the part that I'm trying to pick up.
That makes sense. Yeah, we're all fighting for space.
Always the fight, right?
Yeah.
So then the other clinical parameter that I gave them was it has to bond with polymethyl methacrylate because that's the material that I choose to use for my pickup for various reasons. Not the least of which is the handling properties of PMMA are so much better for a simultaneous reline of the denture and pickup of the tie bases.
Yeah.
So I really wanted it to be bondable or have a chemical adherence with polymethyl methacrylate.
Yep.
And the other clinical parameter I gave them was I would love for the pre-coat to have a little handle that makes it easier for me to put in place. So I don't need a driver. I just can pick up this piece with a handle, screw it into the multi-unit abutment, and then snap the handle away.
Oh, how tall is the handle?
The handle's like 15 millimeters tall.
15, wow.
Yeah, so it's just very easy to hold on to and then snap it away.
So basically the handle is made out of...
polycarbonate. It's all one piece.
That acrylic bonds to.
Well, the handle gets broken away before you do your pickup.
I understand that, but it's still made out of that same material.
Correct.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, so the parts that we manufacture are the threaded post, this handle and polycarbonate shell, and then the tie base. And then internally, we have a manufacturing process that puts all those three parts together and makes it ready for pickup. Now, some of the advantages to the polycarbonate, anybody who's used Smart Denture Conversions 1.0 or Smart Denture Conversions Legacy, I like that.
Yeah.
I think we'll have to pay you a royalty for the use of Smart Denture Conversions Legacy. But one of the complaints that we get from people is they struggle to get the peak cap.
Come on. Yeah. I struggled. I spent a lot of time. Yeah.
Do you?
Well, there are good days and bad days. I'll say that.
Right. Well, so that peak can be tough to get to. And I've always taught this technique by hand using a pin vise, and then you rotate 5 times.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So
I remember. Yep.
You remember that training?
You wiggle it.
Yep.
5 times. Yep. You push.
Yep.
You don't push. Yeah.
So I went to Dr. Nick Egbert's practice in April because, he's a friend of mine. He's a Smart Denture Conversions proponent, and he was really interested in the Omibut. So I said, let me come out to your practice and we'll do a case. So in April, I went out there and I was showing him the Omibut, and he's, expert at everything. So it was not really necessary for me to be there. However, I was glad to be there because he taught me a trick about removing that peak cap.
Yeah.
That just blew my mind how easily he does it.
And the secret has not been shared. Why?
Right? So the secret is with an NSK handpiece, I know you can actually put that third drill, rather than putting it in the pin vise hand instrument, you can put it into your NSK handpiece.
Yeah.
And then turn your NSK handpiece down to 4.
Yeah.
And then you go down that screw channel, and you can, just with light pressure, you can feel it engage that peak head, and then you just withdraw and it comes right out. It blew my mind. I was like, oh my gosh, I have been ruining people's lives by not teaching this.
Somebody, I think it was a doctor I worked with, actually used this handpiece to get it out.
Oh.
And it went right out. And I was like, well, that's on you, buddy, because I don't want to. That's not protocol, and I'm not doing it.
So, and that's what I mean. Like, I have been very staunch about, no, this is the protocol. You run the risk of damaging something if you do
that tie base or pushing it out.
Exactly. If you don't do it by hand, you run these risks. But then when I saw him do it, I was like, oh my gosh, not only is that much easier to teach, but you're doing it at such low RPMs, you're not generating heat in that tie base, so you're not going to be pushing it out. It blew my mind. That's and I was just very grateful for Dr. Egbert hosting me in his practice, that he could teach me how to more efficiently use my own invention, right?
Yeah. So with the 2.0, is that screw still part of that process? I mean, do we still have to get that little peak part out?
Well, it's not peak anymore, right? So the polycarbonate actually goes down into the temp cylinder, the tie base, and engages the threads of the stainless steel threads of the separable fastener.
It's part of that pre-coat cap.
Exactly.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And so because it's part of that cap, there's actually no tension. The legacy Smart Denture Conversions peak cap, that is resting on the screw seat inside the tie base, and that's how you get it to hold the tie base in place.
Yeah,
well,
makes sense.
When we do it as a polycarbonate shell, the part that's holding the tie base down to the multi-unit abutment is the separable fastener threads and the part of the polycarbonate shell that's resting on the top of the tie base, not inside the tie base. And so when you go to do your drill out procedure, that polycarbonate machines so easily, so it's very easy to drill out. And then since that screw head is not sandwiched against the internal tie base or internal screw seat in the tie base, then it just comes out so dreamy.
Like you don't even have to go through the turns and the twists and the pushes and
I mean, we still teach that because it's handy techniques, but yeah, oftentimes it's just going to come out in the drill.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. So no more pre-coating. Very easy to handle with that breakaway handle. And then the improvement to the lack of a peak part and making that polycarbonate easier to drill through. and then having it not resting on the screw seat, all that just improves some of the major pain points that people were experiencing.
Yeah, I agree. That major pain point was getting those little peak parts out.
Yeah.
Are you going to put Legacy to bed?
No, because with the pre-coat, that solves the problem for people who are using the system as a complete system. But there are still people who use our separable fastener technology, but they want to use OEM temp cylinders, and they want to cut their OEM temp cylinders down to the right height and just use OEM temp cylinders. Okay, then you need to have a separable fastener.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
But for those who just use the optimized version of Smart Denture Conversions, to me,
the kit.
The pre-coat makes the most sense. It's like the same price. We didn't raise the price on this better improvement.
What?
It's just this was.
You did mention you're not good at business,
right? Yeah, exactly. I'm just trying to make things easier for my fellow trench warriors, right?
Yes, and we appreciate you doing all this.
Oh, it's fun. Oh, the other thing that we've done to improve the protocol, this isn't like a separable fastener product, but the protocol is we also make the silicone dams available with a vinyl sheet adhered to the silicone so that you can imprint the position of the multi-unit abutments, punch through those imprints, and then just peel the vinyl away and put the silicone dam over your tie bases.
Oh, instead of doing the paper one?
Right,
and then...
right.
I can never get that to work. I'm going to be honest. I can never get it to pick up.
Yes. So I think you'll like the vinyl. Again, we'll have to send you some so you can play with it.
Yeah, I'd love to try that. Something I really have been questioning. I'm going to use that term, questioning. These prefabricated arches. What the heck, man? That's like everything against dentistry.
I know. Like
it reminds me of those commercials you see online of like you could buy the snap-on teeth,
right.
that seen on TV, and I'm like, what is he thinking?
Right, no, totally. And like anybody who just sees it, they dismiss it as heresy, right? And remember, I am an Air Force trained, board certified prosthodontist under the direction and training of Rod Phoenix and Charles DeFriest, who wrote the book Stewart's Clinical Removable Prosthodontics.
But you broke them down to small, medium, and large.
So those stock dentures, I'm not the first person or the originator of the idea of a stock denture, right? So I need to give credit where credit is due. Good Fit dentures and Laurel dentures, those are predecessors to my product. And I was working with Laurel dentures, Dr. Lawrence. He's a great man, great oral surgeon, very visionary. But I told him I didn't like his dentures for specific reasons, and I couldn't use them for specific reasons. And so I had to make my own that resolved my concerns about his stock dentures. His focus had always been on using them as the ability to make a thermoplastic denture. So you can make an alginate impression of a patient's mouth and then boil these dentures, adapt them to the alginate cast, and then you have a denture ready to go.
Oh, I didn't realize they boiled and fit.
Yeah.
I don't know much about it. Interesting.
So both Good Fit and Laurel dentures were designed for that intention. Well, my intention is all in full arch fixed, right? You think of Smart on X as a all on X solutions company. So my focus is how can I have something ready to use for fixed? And one of my guiding clinical principles is I don't want to convert anything with denture teeth, because denture teeth subtract from the denture-based material. The most likely thing to break in a full arch fixed provisional restoration is the denture base, and anything that subtracts from the bulk of the denture base is weakening the denture base.
Yeah, 100%.
Therefore, denture teeth are subtracting from the bulk of the denture base and hence weakening the prosthesis. Mm-hmm. Which is another reason why I prefer having short tie bases, because I want to preserve as much of the bulk of the denture base as I possibly can for strength purposes.
Yeah.
So I made these stock dentures to be milled PMMA teeth with pink PMMA processed to it, ready for the pickup. So there's a big, deep channel in the intaglio of the denture so that the parts and pieces have the space already incorporated into the denture for me to just add acrylic and then pick up the parts simultaneously with a reline of that stock denture. What blew my mind was how many patients you can actually fit into a ready-made stock set of teeth. It blew my mind.
It doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't. Like, why would you not go through the process of creating something to fit ideally for the patient? I mean, are these like patients that come in, say, I want an all on X, but I want it right now? I mean,
and so, Elvis, you laugh, but 2 weeks before Memorial Day, I spend 1 day a week at a practice down in Fayetteville, Dr. Jones at Sandhills Oral Surgery and Implant Center. He's an amazing oral surgeon, and I go down there. I have my own practice, which keeps me very busy, but he asked if I would come down and spend 1 day a week with him in his practice to offer him prosthetic support to his patients. And I do it not because I need the job, but because I want to work with him. I love him. He's an amazing surgeon.
Yeah.
But working 1 day a week in a practice it's a big challenge because a lot of prosthetic procedures require multiple visits, like a denture requires multiple visits.
Yeah.
Well, this one patient came to us and I consulted with her on one of my Mondays down in the practice. And it was 2 Mondays before Memorial Day that I saw her. And keep in mind, Memorial Day is on a Monday. So this is 2 Mondays before Memorial Day, which means I only have one more Monday before Memorial Day.
Oh, because you're only there once a week. Yeah.
And because I'm only there once a week, I'm booked out many weeks in advance.
Oh, I would imagine. Yeah.
So she comes in and she says, yeah, I really want to have my mandibular full arch surgery done before Memorial Day. And she had good reason for wanting that.
Well, doesn't every patient have a good reason for wanting it?
Absolutely. Keep in mind, we are living in the dawn of Amazon Prime.
Instant, yes.
Instant, exactly. Right? So we as consumers are accustomed to now.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I told her, yeah, that's no big deal. We can do that. So we just booked her for a Friday when I would be off before Memorial Day. So I showed up and she needed to have a maxillary complete denture made and a mandibular fixed conversion prosthesis.
Mm-hmm.
So I went down there already knowing from her CBCT data that she fit perfectly in a medium round arch form. And so 1 hour before her surgical procedure with the surgeon, I just took my medium round maxillary denture as if it was an impression tray, and I relined it with putty, and then I relined that with light body PVS, did all my muscle trimming, got my border molded final impression, so that while my surgeon was reflecting a flap and then placing the implants, while he was doing that, I just went into the laboratory and did a quick laboratory reline or rebase of that denture. So that by the time he had the implants in place and we used Omnibuts, my denture was ready to deliver and be used to pick up the mandibular stock denture and turn it into a conversion prosthesis. So
interesting.
It's like wildly convenient to have these stock dentures. It blows my mind. But as a prosthodontist, I never would have thought that it was possible. So I took my brother, who's an orthodontist, I asked him for access to his iTero scan data because he does post-op scans for all of his patients.
Sure. I
just do like 30 names at random, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I start doing measurements on those 30 patients. And then I measured the mesiolingual cusp of the first molar to the contralateral medialingual cusp of the first molar. Then I measured from the cusp of the canine to the cusp of the contralateral canine. And then I measured the length of the central incisor embrasure, so between 8 and 9, that facial embrasure, to the line that connects the mesiolingual cusp tips to get an idea of arch length. And then I categorized the arch forms as either square, tapered, or ovoid.
Yeah.
The data
That's crazy.
was so amazing. There was a deviation of about 3 millimeters in arch widths, which, that's the total width. So that's 1.5 millimeters on one side and 1.5 millimeters on another.
And that's the difference between small and large?
Well, no, that was in the natural dentition. That was the deviation that I saw.
Oh.
Okay, so now I'm starting to get an
Yeah.
appreciation for, oh my gosh, look at how similarly sized these arch widths are. And then arch lengths, again, a deviation of about 3 millimeters. So even tooth size isn't deviating very much. Arch form, that one was the real shocker to me. They were all coming out with very similar arch forms. And I don't know much about orthodontics. That was a weakness in my education, right?
Yeah.
So I call my orthodontist brother up and I say, hey, Michael, what is going on here? Why do I see so many of your arches with the same arch form? And he said, Brandon, think about it.
He forced them into that.
Exactly.
He made it that way.
I only have one arch wire in my practice.
Those are all regular braces.
Yeah, so he uses prescription brackets with prescription arch wires. And so
interesting.
Pretty much all of his patients come out with a very similar arch form.
Rounded, I imagine?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah.
So now I ask him one of the dumbest questions I've ever asked. I said, you mean to tell me that you can meet your patient's aesthetic expectations with just one arch wire? And he said, Brandon, think about how these patients present to me.
Yeah.
Well, that's a very good point. And so I thought, how do my patients present to me? Even worse off than his patients present.
Yeah.
Right? So I needed to get out of that mentality of, no, everything has to be custom. There's no way you can meet a patient's aesthetic expectations with anything less than a custom prosthesis. So I put it to the test. Me and my technician during COVID, we designed these. We have a total of 18 dentures, so 9 uppers, 9 lowers. And there's 3 sizes, small, medium, large, and 3 arch forms, a square, triangular, and round.
All the teeth are the same on all of them?
No, we used Vita pen teeth.
Yeah.
And there are several tooth molds for them.
Depending on the size of the arch.
Depending on the size and the arch form, yeah.
Makes sense.
Another dirty secret is ask any stock denture tooth manufacturer.
Yeah.
Ask them which of their molds fit within the top 80% of their purchases.
Oh, there's always a common one for every single.
You're going to find 3. 3 molds account for 80% of their total sales.
Yeah, 100%. And one shade will take up a big portion of it too.
Right. And so it's the stock denture. Just yesterday, you don't always use a stock denture for the actual delivery, like you're actually delivering the product that you used.
Mm-hmm.
But you can use it as a jump start into getting to the final restoration. I've always said even a bad denture gives good information. And so that good information
100%, yeah.
just expedites care, right?
Yeah.
So just yesterday, I had a patient in my chair sent to me from the VA down in Fayetteville. 2 months ago, he had nasal polyp removal surgery.
Yikes.
And now he has communication with his nasal cavity, and he is unintelligible. You cannot understand a word he says because of that communication with his nasal passage. He needs an obturator. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to understand this guy. I can't understand a word he's saying. And so they're asking me, can you help him? And I said, honestly, I don't know. This sounds terrible. So I just grabbed a stock denture off the shelf. It was a maxillary medium round stock denture, relined it with putty, relined it with light body. And then I spent maybe 10 minutes in the laboratory contouring the palate, the cameo surface of the palate, so that it would truly resemble what a denture would be for him. I put it in his mouth, and all of a sudden, he sounds like night and day difference. You can understand what he's saying. So as a diagnostic tool, I was able to use a stock denture to very quickly answer the question for those patients, can you help us? So people laugh at the concept of a stock denture. but I'm telling you, it is a very, very powerful tool in a dental practice.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I came into this thinking Snap-on Smile. What the hell are you doing, man? But
no,
a lot of that's making sense.
Yeah, no, it's not a Snap-on Smile. It still requires the laboratory, right? So I use the denture as an impression tray, and then I send it to my laboratory to rebase it.
Well, the way I see it is I've done smart denture conversions, and you don't always get the best results, no matter what happens, what you do. The bite is off. There's too much of an overjet. And that's with custom made. So, I mean, the problems happen even with.
Oh, totally.
So,
totally.
Yeah. And we all just say this. These are just temporary.
Yeah.
We will make it better later.
Yeah. And that's a really good thing to point out. You know, just as a tip to anybody who's listening to this, don't oversell your services at the time of surgery. What I do is I buy grace from my patients. I tell them at the time of surgery, I really have 5 objectives, but only 4 of them I'm going to hyper focus on, because those are the only ones that require hyper focus at the time of surgery. The 5th one, I can hyper focus after surgery.
Yeah.
So these priorities are 1, to keep you alive.
Yeah. Your health.
Yeah. And the patients pretty much appreciate that idea.
Yeah.
And then 2, to keep you comfortable.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, that seems like a pretty high priority.
Yeah.
And then I say, the 3rd is to get you implants. The 4th is to make you teeth.
Yep.
And the 5th is to make you teeth that you absolutely love.
I love it. And it's so true.
If you just help your patients appreciate that everything that's going on at the time of surgery, there are so many more priorities than getting the teeth absolutely right. We're going to get you teeth. We're going to make them look good. But you might have some preferences for what we do at the time of surgery to what we do at the final restoration. Don't worry, there's a time for us to hyper-focus on that. It is not at surgery.
Well, for me, when I first started doing these things, and someone asked me, how'd it go yesterday? I'm like, not great. Midline was off a little bit. And the person looked at me and goes, did the patient wear it out? And I'm like, yeah. Then it was a success.
Exactly.
And I'm like, yeah, you know what? You're right.
Yeah.
I can fix that midline later.
Exactly.
Dr. Kofford, we went way over on time.
I'm sorry.
And I think we could... No, don't apologize. I'm into this. It's always great talking to you, and I love what you're doing, and I love... Just keep doing it, man. Just keep making it better. I'm waiting for 3.0.
Oh, yeah.
I know you're probably wanting to take a break. But...
No. Actually, we do have a 3.0 version coming out, but...
Son of a...
But it won't be for All on X. It'll be for any implant restoration. So
I love it. Well, when you're ready to talk about it, let's have you back.
Awesome.
On.
I appreciate the invite. And Elvis,
awesome, sir.
Always fun talking to you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And we'll talk to you and probably see you soon.
All right. Sounds good. See ya.
Yep. Have a good one.
A big thanks to Dr. Kofford for joining Elvis on this delightful, and I must say, delightful conversation about implants and parts and pieces and screws and abutments and a whole bunch of other things that I'm glad I don't have to keep straight, because as everybody knows, I'm a ceramist and I only worry about the final restoration spray interiors. But seriously, it sounds like you came up with some pretty amazing new additions to your workflow, and I bet it'll help a ton of technicians and clinicians have better results. And it's also great that you're keeping the 2.0 parts at the same price. That's pretty sweet.
It's huge.
Yeah,
it's nice.
So everyone doing full arches, or if you want to do full arches, head over to smartonx.com to see all of the parts that he talked about and to get a starter kit today. Do it.
All right, everybody. That's all we got for you, and we will talk to you next week.
Hey, have a great week.
Bye.
See ya. Is it Smart on Onx or Smart ONX?
Smart on X.
Smart on X. Okay, good. I'm glad I asked.
The views and opinions expressed on the Voices from the Bench podcast are those of the guest and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the host or Voices from the Bench, LLC.